Let's talk a little bit about when you already have your knife in hand. Perhaps you saw trouble coming, or maybe you broke away from trouble and managed to get your knife out. Whatever the situation, you have the knife in hand already and violence is being brought upon you. Of course, you can still use the Medusa system, the Medusa tactics of shock, latch, and stab. But in this video, I'm going to be showing some other tactics that I might use or might apply in this situation. This does not mean that I believe the Medusa tactics are less effective in this situation. It just is because I want to highlight something different. I want to show some different options. A lot of this is from my training in Filipino martial arts, and some of it is inspired by what little I've seen from the Libre system. When you have your knife in play before the actual violence happens, it changes everything. This is one of the reasons why I really love the drawing of the knife that we use in the Medusa system, because as we use force, we are constantly reassessing what we're doing. So if our assessment tells us it's the right time to draw the knife, we need to draw the knife, it is reasonable to the situation to draw the knife, then we can draw the knife. If using potentially lethal force is not reasonable to the situation, we can use force without bringing our tool into play. We can choose to use our empty hands. We have to be guided by what is reasonable to the situation if we are following Canadian law and the laws of many countries in the world. If you bring your knife into play when it is not reasonable to the situation, then you may be creating greater difficulty for yourself. If the other person is carrying a knife and didn't think to draw it and was just wanting to have a good old dust up, all of a sudden you may be in a lethal force encounter that you escalated the level of force to. Also, even if you are capable of scaling the use of force with your knife, cutting the limbs, cutting through muscle tissue, cutting through ligaments, you may have a hard time convincing authorities that is what you are doing. You may have a hard time convincing a jury of your peers that that was the tactics you are using, because quite honestly, no one who is not a knife combatives person would ever consider that a possibility. They consider the knife the weapon of a madman, the weapon of an assassin, the weapon of a bad guy. The media imagery of violent knife use is never good. It's never positive. And this is what you'll be up against if you have to go to court to defend your actions if you used force with an edged weapon to counter violence being brought to you. You will be seen as a bad guy, as a thug, as a psycho. You will have to convince people who have a predisposed ideal that only a madman would use this. You would have to convince them that what you did was reasonable, and that will be a difficult task. So understand that a knife is one of the worst weapons to use as a self-defense tool, as an improvised weapon in a violent altercation. This is one of the worst weapons you can ever use if you want to maintain your freedom after the self-defense situation, after the act. This is a terrible weapon to be brought before a judge over using. There have been case studies where people have successfully defended themselves with knives, even killed another person in extreme cases, and have been found to be using reasonable force to the situation. You have to understand that. You have to make an edged weapon the last option, the very last option. When it comes to personal protection, this has to be the last possible thing for the worst case scenario. Remember, it is your duty to escape. It is your duty to flee. It is your duty to not engage. If it is at all possible, if you go to this level of force, there better have been no other option, and you will have to prove that there was no other option. I will tell you right now, a knife as a self-defense tool is not a great option. It is a great tool to have on you as an everyday item of carry. It is a handy cutting tool that you can use in various tasks throughout your day. It is not a great tool of personal protection. In fact, if you carry anything just for the purpose of personal protection, in Canada and many Commonwealth countries, this will be seen as carrying something that is dangerous to the public peace, and that can get you in trouble in itself. So make sure if you do carry stuff that they have another purpose, a flashlight, a knife, a pen. All of these things have other purposes. Try to stick with edged tools that don't have macho names and are advertised as tools, not self-defense items. And if you do choose to carry an edged tool with you on a daily basis, make sure you have absolute control over your temper, over your actions, and you aren't one of these misguided individuals who embraces a culture of vengeance. This has no place in self-defense. Thank you.